Hello, Colette. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me this morning.
It's my pleasure.
So you had asked about where is the certificate residing within universities typically? Was that your question?
hmm Correct.
Yeah, there are um, a number, colleges that don't have business programs. It is typically within a center for entrepreneurship. So, not all college and universities have business programs or even schools of engineering, but they do have entrepreneurship centers. So that's typically where that will reside.
Okay.
And it will be owned by the director of the Center for Entrepreneurship. Now, certainly at Cleveland State, you do have a business school, and you do offer that both for undergraduates and graduates. And you offer an undergraduate major and a graduate certificate in entrepreneurship. Can
So
you?
it's just to clarify, it's actually an undergraduate minor
Oh, I'm sorry, minor. Yes.
and a graduate level certificate.
But one of the things that I saw on the website is that the requirements are similar. 3 required courses plus 1 elective, and that's for both the minor, undergraduate minor, and the certificate for graduate students. Why is that? Why do you call it a minor for undergraduates and as opposed to a certificate?
Um, it's a good question, but when there's programming at the undergraduate level, it's referred to almost always as a minor. And
Okay.
then at the graduate level, they refer to you know, what could be potentially a minor. The graduate level, they always refer to them as certificates. So it's just sort of a terminology. And although the requirements change at times based on the state and the university, we're a state institution. Um, Currently, the requirements are that there's 3 courses and then an elective.
Does the term certificate does that have certain implications? So versus minor. So, for example, I know that the undergraduate minor is available for anybody who is, their junior year. It's available to all disciplines across the campus. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Um, by calling it a minor versus a certificate, do you think that impacts um, the attractiveness or the number of applicants for that?
At the undergraduate level,
Yes.
I think undergraduate students might think of having like a minor on their transcript, their transcripts, or they I think it that actually resonates with them more that I have this major and this minor. At the graduate level, especially if students are coming back later, they probably are used to more module learning or continual education or professional executive education, or they've taken additional courses. So the certificate is something that maybe resonates more or is aligned with more industry terminology. You can get, you know, an industry certification or an industry certificate. Um, so I don't know. There was a time period where we didn't support certificates,
Yeah.
and now certificates are they actually are kind of back in style. So and both of these, the minor and the certificate, have gone through significant revamping over the past 2 years. So we realized that there were certain barriers. For example, in the minor, all of the courses resided within departments. So there was a management course, a marketing course, a finance course, which all came together to create this minor. And there were particular barriers, especially on the finance side, of how often that course ran. And we didn't necessarily have as much input to how it was run to make sure that students could to complete the minor. So now in the minor, you will note that all of those courses fall under ENT. So through a lot of conversation, negotiation, we decided that, and as our entrepreneurship program university-wide and our Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship has really grown, we realized that those courses sort of needed their own acronym attached to it. And as we add additional courses, which I'll tell you how that's kind of playing a role, we needed a place for them and not just sort of a open, you know, an elective course that you kind of run once in a while. So we're being much more strategic and on having a real home for those courses and developing additional courses to go along. The reason that's important is that one of the things that, you know, we really in our center focus on the experiential learning. And so what we do is we go and find strong coursework, academic programming, and we come in and add value through experiential learning. And we've been doing that. We have an incredible program with the film school. We have a program with the art school. We are working with health sciences and nursing and OT. We have some partnerships with engineering. So what we realized is that to really embed entrepreneurship into, you know, our goal is to have our students to have an entrepreneurial mindset. You can't just run everything out of the business school and expect students to come in. You need to go and add value to where they are. And so what's happening is some of those experiential programs are turning into credit programs. So with the film school, it's now a year-long production, and then we add on some experiential learning. And I'll share with you that we're looking at adding now a business side to that. So students in the business school or other schools that aren't necessarily in film could take an ENT, every film is a startup course in the business school, and that could act as an elective to the minor, but it could also then allow students to get credit for the work that currently is experiential, working on every film as a startup. So it's now a place, a holder where those programs that are really successful that students would like to have as credit, not just experiential, we can start to add those. So that has been a big change in the minor, and it's currently in the works for the certificate. It's a little bit different on the certificate level, and I'm just give you an example, is that all of our bioengineering students have to take one of our certificate courses. It's required. So in changing all of it, like the ENT and some of it then impacts all of their, you know, curricular course listings as well. So we're currently working on what that would look like. And we also want to make sure that the courses can be potentially cross-listed with the MBA program. So it's a little trickier, and it just means, like, a lot of times a department will say, well, let's just run the courses and put these acronyms on and it'll be totally fine. But we want to make sure that it makes sense to the students and that we make sure that there are no like prereqs that we weren't considering because it's a business student, for example, for a bioengineering student. So it does take a bit of thoughtful work, and then you have to actually have that all go through the faculty Senate review process. So
do you have an academic director for entrepreneurship university wide? Is there somebody designated for that? Even because what I'm asking is that, what I'm hearing is that there are multiple disciplines that are now offering ENT or entrepreneurship related courses that may be part of the undergraduate minor and graduate certificate. And who owns all of these?
Right. So at this point, we see ourselves as out of the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and our Weston Ideation Lab, we go in and help design these value-added experiential programming. And if courses are designed out of that, they reside in that particular college. So the film course is a production course. However, and in health and in engineering, it's the same, except for the one entrepreneurship course in the certificate where engineering students come over and take it. That said, what we've always done is we want the programs to be as interdisciplinary as possible. And when you have really good experiential programs, they're interdisciplinary. So the reason we developed the ENT is to develop a couple extra courses that could go alongside some of these courses that are embedded in other colleges that wouldn't necessarily accept a student into the film production course senior year. Okay. So if we want students to be working with them on looking at distribution and supply chain issues and how do you get market fit and how do you price this film on streaming device, then we wanted a place for them to also, either they could do it experiential or they could potentially get credit. And it's interesting, more and more students are really want to be able to kind of dabble in other areas outside of their major, right? And so that's why we're trying to look at ways to create. So the idea is that we go in, the film school says, we don't teach anything with regards to business or entrepreneurship. And let's face it, the film industry is pretty cutthroat, pretty complex. Would you be willing to come in and work with us? So we came in, and it didn't happen overnight. It was a 3-year process. We piloted it. We redeveloped the curriculum. We went back to faculty, and at the end, they were like, we want this to be a year-long production class embedded with the experiential piece so that our students get to work side by side with business students and or other students to really clearly understand how you take an idea, create a short that could be distributed to streaming or a production studio, and clearly understand pricing, distribution networks, all the legal components to it. And so we spent a lot of time.
IP.
The IP. I mean, there's so much. I mean, we've learned a lot, but there's a whole other language with regards to the business side and the legal side that can directly impact, the pricing and what it costs to get something into the marketplace. So now the students coming out not only have the ability to, on the creative side, the technical side, to create a film, they truly understand and have sort of tested, because we actually have this experiential piece where they're pitching to production studios and they have to have the financials and that they're really market ready. And so that's the philosophy that we're starting, the way that we talk about it is that we look for partnerships within colleges to drive entrepreneurship through signature programs that have value to what they're already doing. We're not recreating, they already have a production course. What we're doing is adding value to it. And the same through the other examples I provided. So back to the minor, the ENT, having a place to add courses that can support that when the experiential programming maybe gets to a point that would have a lot of value as an academic course.
Well, every athlete is a startup.
Mhm.
You know, that is, not sure if that is considered an experiential
Mhm.
program. Is that a course or is that a workshop? And is that something that it
So
certainly is
that's
something I would be
another,
interested in if it were
yeah.
part of the minor.
So that's another great example that came out of, as if you've been following, the universities have all, the NCAA has all changed its complete guidelines that
Yeah,
athletes now can
name, image,
promote.
and
So
likeness,
yeah,
NIL.
NIL. So we saw this coming and realized there's a couple schools out there that do this really well. We realized that the students, athletes are all across the campus taking all different majors, and they really didn't have a clear understanding of what this, they knew what it meant, but how do you go out and brand yourself? How do you create digital platforms? What does that mean? If you're bringing in money, do you understand the financials behind it? Do you realize you're paying taxes on that? I mean, all it could impact, scholarships. I mean, so we created a program that provides a digital brand. So it helps you develop a digital brand. We go through financials, and then they learn about sort of the entrepreneurial process. Um, and we introduced that to athletics. So again, that was a need. We're basically doing what startups do. There's a problem, and we're solving it. And then we um, have developed that. We've run it twice as a pilot. We've worked with almost all, like, swimming, soccer, lacrosse, wrestling, basketball. And the idea now is that should that be embedded in one of their freshman courses that all athletes maybe have to take? Is it a standalone course? Is there a first year initiative that we take part of that curriculum, embed it, and then we have an additional course that could be credit, or it could just remain experiential. At this point, it is just experiential.
It's and what if I'm not an athlete, but
Well,
so
well, you're just like totally ahead of the game here. So we had some students come to us and say, well, I'm not an athlete. Why can't I take it? Because they
right.
heard about it. So we now are having these conversations of, why can't every student, why can't we help students create these digital platforms and help brand? Because at the end of the day, right, um, when they leave, they're going to have to be clearly understanding and have those tools to be successful as they market themselves in the workplace. The other side to that is, as we've started to go through this, the experiential component is so critical. It's where students really get to develop those transferable skill sets, those skill sets that everybody talks about in the workplace. You know, problem solving, collaborative, um, the ability to work in teams, the that cognitive flexibility, that deals with risk and all these other. Those are the things that students have to experience and work through when they do a lot of the experiential programs that we run. So we are very clear that there are these skill sets that you can actually begin to kind of identify and measure that you don't necessarily always learn in a classroom. And the real value is how you take that, academic learning and match it up to those soft skills that you can develop in these experiential programs, and then how you articulate that through these digital branding programs, so that you're well prepared and can help navigate through career opportunities. So that's the other piece, and that's why we never will completely move all into coursework. But what's happening is that some of the programs we run are substantial in a way that potential coursework would be of value as well.
There is also a common language of entrepreneurship and common tools. In the description of some of the courses that I've read about, certainly business model, Canvas comes up, lean startup, comes up, value proposition comes up. I'm sure jobs to be done and design thinking, all of these concepts and terms do come up. Is there for the minor and also for the certificate, if I am not a business student, is there some kind of, I don't know, remedial course or way for me to get an understanding of what these basics are before I dive into a course where it's presented and assumed that I already know what these terms mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, it's a good question. And at the minor level, and in the certificate, the courses are stacked in a way that you should be getting all of those, the introductory terminology and what is ideation and what is design thinking. And then you're going into the actual application of using those in the second course. And then in the third course, you're actually starting to include case studies and other levels. So if you're going through the whole thing, you are getting introduced. For like those bio engineering students who get sort of dropped into that one course that's required, our goal is to attract them and have them want to take the entire certificate, but their curriculum is so lockstep that it's very hard for them to add anything. So interestingly, those students quickly adapt to, I think the only area that takes them maybe a little bit longer is on some of the financial components of, the Canvas. But because the design thinking, the discovering, there you're going to use more, hypothesis. They're going to use terminology that fits more into the biosciences, but we can easily link those directly to the business canvas model. And so that, as soon as you say, well, that's what you do when you go through your discovery model, or that's what you're doing when you're creating your hypothesis and testing it, and then they're like, oh, okay, we get it, right?
Yeah,
So
the scientific method, hey.
yes, the terminology might be a little different, but it's actually very, very similar. So
Yes. You use the term experiential. Other universities use the term practicum. Is there? I know you've got an MBA course called Lean Launchpad, which is cohort of teams and it's a big commitment, 10 hours of customer development expected per week, and then you also have the Weston Ideation Labs Accelerator, which is offered in the spring 2023 that I see. Are these, if I go through an accelerator or the Lean Launchpad course, which sounds a lot like an accelerator, do I get any credit for that towards a certificate or towards the minor, and if not, why not?
yeah, no, all good points. It's kind of as if we're using the opposite direction of what you're talking about. So we recruit a lot of students that are in the minor and in the certificate to participate in these other programs. And we talk about, this is where you're really going to get to work in highly interdisciplinary teams and really test. And it's also a place where you're going to get to really network and meet. We always have mentors, highly engaged in all of this, serial entrepreneurs. And the programs that you're talking about are somewhat stacked. So we have something called Startup Bikes, which is an ideation competition, an ideation startup weekend. So it's for everyone and anyone who really wants to learn about the ideation process and how you take an idea to venture. Um, so there's a lot of learning. Then we have something, we have a hackathon, which is a little more, it is more technology bent, but the idea there is that we're giving you a problem and you're using technology to solve that problem. So it's a little bit different twist. And we have Startup Bikes participants that participate in the hackathon. The accelerator, you have to be invited in. You have to go through an application process. You need to have a prototype or have had sales, or you're much more advanced. And that is really about helping you, move. You're past the idea stage. You really need to dive deep and you're either looking at scaling or how to bring something to market in a much better way. And it truly is more of an accelerator environment. So we're looking to provide you with the resources, the tools, and the external network to really move something forward. So they're all a little bit different. They definitely, there's a progression. So we've had people that start with Startup Bikes or something that's even less than that intense startup weekend, and they've literally gone through all of them. And the really great story is recently we had someone who went through all of them and has launched a company, is quite successful, and showed up and said, I want to be a sponsor for the programs now. So that's like our full circle of someone saying these programs help prepare me to launch my company successfully. Obviously their education was critical as well, but it's combining all of that together and then coming back in and realizing, and he, acts as a mentor now. And so that's that full circle that we're trying to create, that continuum for students.
What about, not all students are going to be, come up with a concept, go through the whole startup process, test, pivot on to success in for-profit endeavors. What about social impact endeavors at the demand by students to understand how to launch social impact endeavors at Cleveland State?
Mm-hmm. So we include that, especially like in our startup weekend. We treat those very similarly with regards to, you still have to have financials, you still need to understand the value proposition. It's just that the mission may be a bit different. So we used to run some programs that were completely separate. We were like, oh, they have to be all separate. And what we realized, at least in our learning, is that there was value in bringing some of those together. And you can still talk about, what is a triple bottom line? How does that, how does a social issue impact? But it's actually very embedded in almost all of our programs. Even Every Film is a Startup, we do social documentaries. That's their end product. And, they're doing a doc that's looking at a particular problem or challenge, social justice, or, you name it. And they're addressing that through film. In our startup weekend, we do have some that are focused on some sort of social issue. And part of our hackathon, we are a Pitt UN. I don't know if you're familiar with Pitt UN institution.
Yes.
Um,
Is that the 17 categories that the UN has come up with?
Well, so there are a group of universities that are members, and they look at the use of technology in social platforms. And so that deals with everything from equity, access, ethics. And, there's Princeton and Harvard and Berkeley. And so what they do is they look at how does technology impact society, and how can we ensure that it equally serves everyone. And so they look at these institutions do research in this area, they look at application. And so for our hackathon, part of our hackathon is looking at, we bring in people that have, that represent particular challenges in our community that really kind of start to deal with some of these social, ethical, equity issues, and students work on solutions using technology. So it's embedded in all different ways. And we do that, I think, one of the main reasons is because we want students to realize that even when it's a nonprofit, it still needs to be sustainable. And so you still need to generate revenue to support those very important initiatives. And how do you do that? The financials might look a little bit differently, and the mission might have a different spin, and you maybe don't have shareholders, but you do have people that you are responsible, stakeholders that you're responsible to. So we try to incorporate that into the learning.
Okay. In terms of the language that associated with entrepreneurship, and in terms of inclusivity for students from different socioeconomic backgrounds, gender, race, are you seeing any change in how entrepreneurship is discussed or presented, so that you don't have students say, oh, that's not for me, I don't identify with entrepreneurship, that's for white males in the business school who are from a certain wealthy backgrounds?
So first of all, we are an urban state institution, and our numbers, we serve a very diverse population, and not just regarding race, but social economic diversity. So, and a huge percentage of first time, college students. So it's sort of inherent in our population. So whenever we partner up with other universities and we go to competitions, our pitch, teams look very different than a lot of other schools. So we, to me, it gives us an advantage. That diversity is, it makes us approach things just differently from the get-go. And that is included in our language, in how we engage students, and how we reach students, and how we work across campus. With regards to terminology, it really is more important for us to understand. You can always do better in equity and access and all these other things. We strive for that every day. And that what we have learned is that our language, which is very business centric sometimes, doesn't resonate at all. Like, we're doing a lot with social work, and you can see them just glaze over, when you start using the word entrepreneurship even. So we work very closely to find words that resonate. Like, we're doing this huge program with the art department, both studio and design. We realize that we have to gingerly bring in these terminologies and make sure they're comfortable with, some of our financial terms, and but the business canvas model, that kind of fits, right? There are certain ways that you can bring terminology in and they get it. So we're learning what terminology resonates with them, what fits into the marketplace, and then how do we integrate what we do so that because we know that there are tools and resources that come out of what we do that they have to understand. So we find words that resonate so that they don't shut down before we even like really get to the meat of stuff.
University of California, Berkeley, as an example, they use the term change maker quite a bit. Can you provide any examples of, the language that you use at Cleveland State for presenting entrepreneurship?
We use change maker. We bring in innovative leaders a lot, innovative leadership. So we try to use words that are still kind of encompass many things, but they're words that kind of resonate a little bit differently. But there are some really core. So what we will do is we will break down the curriculum, even if it's experiential, and say we break it down, and we start with the business canvas model because it has particular terminology, but then we break it down into some particular terms that would be part of each of the learning objectives. And then we spend time with content experts in a particular area. I will give the example of film. And in those cases, there is terminology that they use in the industry. It matches up, but it's the terminology that they would have to use if they were pitching or if they were trying to get on a streaming, or, how they would just, we might use the word supply chain. Theirs would be, they would never use that word. They would talk about distribution, but then there's some other terminology. So we literally go through and map out all of those words and then include it in the program descriptions for each of those sessions.
Excellent. Got it. So it's kind of custom based on the course. Is that got it?
On the topic, on the college. So we are, we're doing that with the art right now. So they talk about, you're either on the design side or you're in the studio side. And I'm like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, really tell me what that means, right? And there's some real distinct differences. Like in the studio side, you drive the end product. On the design side, the client design, drives the end product. That's a really different philosophy for whatever the student is doing in that space. So then we go back and we track additional words, or what would someone in the studio reply if they were talking about these particular things, how would they describe them? And so it gets down into this, semantics, and the terminology is critical, because it's going to resonate with them. And then we bring in content experts who share their stories because they're inspirational, but they also use this terminology, right? So it helps us better understand. Instead of talking about a customer segment, maybe we need to define that a little differently. And so it is a process. It takes some front end work, but what we're finding is it's how you it's how you connect with that end user in a way that makes it that them have ownership in the process.
The certificate is going on close to 10 years, as you had shared with me. Do you track all of this, kind of have longitudinal studies as to, how many students, participate in the certificate program and also in the minor program? You had said that you report, or at least provide information to a funder or a sponsor or donor of the programs. Is that information that that you can share? In terms of trends, is it an increasing trend? And in terms of the disciplines, the non-business disciplines for the undergraduate minor and also for the certificate, are you seeing any changes or increases in participants who are, non-MBAs and non undergraduate business majors?
So Phil, this is the area where, I really think we just have not done a good job. And I know institutions will always talk about this, but the space of Western ideation and all of these programs that I'm talking about, we launched in 2017. So we really truly are relatively new.
Mm-hmm.
The grants that we went over, that we secured to actually initiate what we call now the minor and the certificate, were very early. It was 2012, 2011. So those programs have been around, but they have not been, and they resided more on the faculty side. I'm not a faculty. So they've resided in the faculty homes and within the various departments. And there was no strategic marketing or support. Like, students took all the courses, but did they always, and then you add on the tracking through the bursar's office, and the transcripts was something that was more self-directed and not something that just popped up on your transcript, right? That said, oh, you have these 4 classes, you get the certificate, right? Was not happening. So in 2017, we realized it was really important to merge or to bring together the academic side and the experiential center side. And we started asking all these questions, just like you just asked. And we were like, what do you mean you don't know how many? Like, why don't we track that? Why do we know if that course should be turned out with this? Well, did you know that bioengineering requires this course? And maybe if we added one of their courses in this course, they could get the certificate. I mean, no one was asking those questions. And it actually takes, so we now have a faculty member who's sort of designated in the entrepreneurship area, who's new, who helped revamp the curriculum because it wasn't lockstep, or you didn't start with something and then continue to progress. And we're asking all those questions. We've gone in and helped revamp some of the descriptions. The certificate still needs work, but on the minor side, we put up on TV. I mean, we actually started a marketing campaign to get students aware that you only need one more class and you can actually get this minor. So it is a work in progress, is the best way for me to answer your question. And I think we're finally getting to a place that all the components will be there, that we can actually start having and tracking and making sure the system is supporting it, internal mechanisms within the university to really have solid numbers on that front. Meanwhile, the work that we're doing in connecting with all of the colleges will be really critical in engaging those students.
Mm-hmm. In a couple of broader questions, student generations are typically measured in 4-year increments, right? So you have been at Cleveland State for more than 20 years. So what are some of the changes that you're seeing in students themselves with regard to entrepreneurship, let's say over the last, say, 10 years, since the certificate and certainly the minor?
That I've been here for 20 years. but my work was spread across numerous centers. It still is.
Mhm.
So I oversee a global business center. We had a center for sustainable business practices, our executive education, and then our center for innovation and entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
So I was instrumental in getting the grant that helped launch the center and do a lot of faculty development and initiate the minor and the certificate. But the center was really not actively engaged with from a non-credit side with the academic side. And it really wasn't until we created the Weston Ideation Lab, which is a brick and mortar innovation space that students, faculty come through, um, that we really started having this direct interface with students. Um, Often, a lot of the previous work directly worked with external clients. And so that's when we really started asking all these questions and realized it was there were courses, there were faculty, but creating a cohesive program that had applied research, that had academic courses that made sense and that led to something, and that had experiential learning and components tied into it, that, you know, I will say didn't really exist at that level. And so now, since 2017, that's exactly what we've been doing and building support mechanisms to do all of that, to bring in some substantial money to support it. Um, and throw in the pandemic, now we finally
Yeah.
are, we we're part of the becoming much more part of the fabric and the value of what we do outside of the business school, even though we were always supposed to serve students university wide, is much more it 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 is much more understood for her. Our president is very engaged in learning about what we're doing and meeting with our students. Say we were 75% business, and now, you know, we can reverse that and say we're 30% business, and then other colleges from across the campus.
Uh, if you will, in terms of implementing, so sort of advising other universities and colleges that do not yet have a certificate in entrepreneurship, either for graduates and especially for undergraduates. What would you advise me as the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, or a dean of a business school, or the provost, in implementing a broad-based, cross-disciplinary certificate in entrepreneurship? What are my challenges? What are the benefits that I can see, and what should I be kind of thinking about in terms of positioning and marketing? It's a big question.
Yeah. So when we first started to look at all of this, we definitely decided not to we purposefully created something that could be more inclusive with other colleges. And part of that was that there were particular courses that we identified within other colleges that students could use within their college to meet the elective requirements. So it didn't all have to come from one college.
Mhm.
It's very hard to manage and do. Um, and it's very hard to establish something overnight that other colleges are willing to release students in some of the curriculums, especially in engineering schools in some of the health sciences. I mean, their curriculum is just so tight.
Mm.
So I think one, making it as flexible as possible as you introduce coursework so that it can be as inclusive as possible. Two, finding those champions within each college to support the work. I mean, it's really important.
Faculty
So
champions.
yeah, in every
Yeah.
college, you know, we've worked really hard to find that champion who really gets it. Like we have some real connections within the engineering school, right?
Mhm.
They're the chemical engineer, but they've always worked in this space. They've done stuff with I-Core. So to help them realize that there's a connection in the business school, and those connections help to promote courses to students, as well as to help promote to the college leadership that this should be something that we're considering, right? Or we should have someone from Weston come over when we're meeting with X, because they can really, like, we're going to meet with NASA. They should come over and talk about innovation and ideation, right? So the flexibility so that it's inclusive, the ability to find those champions across campus. Um, I don't think universities do a really good job in building faculty innovators, right? We don't, but they're a core component. Like, we can teach students, but if we're not doing it as a university, there's a disconnect. So that's an important ingredient in helping to look at coursework and design. And then the other component that I would talk about is if you don't have the structure to support it right away in creating actual courses, do some really good experiential learning programs to
Mm.
capture attention, because those programs can turn into credit courses. And
Like every athlete is a startup. Is that a good
like every
example?
athlete is every film is a startup, started as a challenge grant to create something new on your campus. It was a
Yeah.
$10,000 challenge grant from a local foundation. And 3 years later, we have a production studio that is fully supporting it. We have a course, and who knows, we might be able to have some incredible doc series that are going to be on Netflix in a couple of years, right? So you got to start. I really think there's nothing wrong with starting small and piloting,
Right.
getting the attention, making sure that you have the faculty line up, being flexible, and then having some of those champions to help drive. Because if you want to be interdisciplinary, you can start stuff in your own college. But if you really want to be interdisciplinary, you can't, you cannot just create it and thinking that they'll come.
There were still a number of colleges and universities, particularly small liberal arts, predominantly liberal arts, colleges and universities that do not yet have centers for entrepreneurship. Um, would you see that those colleges and universities could establish a center for entrepreneurship with the certificate as a foundation for the Center for Entrepreneurship?
I'm gonna say yeah. We launched all of this with a grant, a significant grant from the Department of Education. And the idea was we weren't really doing enough in this space. So let's first get our faculty engaged. So we went and looked at other programs across the country, and then we developed the curriculum. We were missing some key ingredients that we've talked about. So for, roughly 10 years, 8 years, we developed the courses, we had some faculty, students took the courses, but we didn't have all those other pieces. I would love to be able to say that you don't have to, but it really kept us out of some of the funding as well. with regards to creating an actual space. And because it's student focused, even if it's a small location, there's something about, I probably would have said, well, if you have some virtual presence, it should be adequate. It's students want to be able to go someplace, and that place has to be really cool. It has to be something that they come into, and it's the simple little things. We always have snacks. We have a refrigerator full of water and other stuff. I mean, we really want them to come here and have this Google Hangout spot, right? And it does create part of the presence. It's where we bring our funders. It's where people connect. And it's what led to us getting significant funding to launch all these other kinds of things. So, I highly recommend, I think you can start with a course, when they see that these courses, a course is full and it fills up every semester, that's a good indicator. And, that's how universities operate with regards to student engagement, but also their financials. And then I think adding some sort of experiential activity that's on campus that engages colleges outside of the college that's maybe developed the course. And so my answer is yes, I think you can, but it should be on your radar of something that you'd want to add down the road or fund for. It should be like part of that. Here's our 10-year, wish list to your advancement office, because it does play a critical role in how you engage your students. For us, it was a game changer, for sure. Having a space that's when we really started to see significant growth.
Colette, this has been fantastic. Wonderful insights. I can't thank you enough. And I look forward to, sharing your insights with the entrepreneurship community.
Well, I do always check in with your the insights that you share, and I think it's really helpful. So, you're helping to connect and help us learn from each other.
Thank you very much.
Keep up the great work. Thanks, Phil.
Okay.